Imagine a world where humanity's last survivors live on a train that never stops moving. Not by choice, but because stopping means freezing to death in seconds. This train circles the frozen Earth endlessly, completing one full loop every year. But this isn't just any train, it's a moving prison where your birth decides everything. The rich live in luxury at the front, enjoying fresh food, schools, and spas. The middle class manages to survive with basic necessities. And the poor? They're crammed into the tail section like cattle, fed mysterious protein bars, and beaten into submission by armed guards. For 17 years, this has been their reality. No hope. No future. Just survival. But one man named Curtis has had enough. He's spent years planning a revolution from the tail section, determined to fight his way through every car until he reaches the engine and takes control. What he doesn't know is that this journey will force him to confront the darkest moments of his past, when hunger drove people to unthinkable acts, when babies were considered food, and when humanity lost all meaning. The train's creator, Wilford, sits at the front like a god, controlling every aspect of their lives. And Curtis is about to discover that the biggest lie isn't about the frozen world outside. It's about the system inside the train itself. This is a story about the price of survival, the cost of revolution, and the terrible truth that sometimes the monsters aren't the ones holding weapons, they're the ones holding power. The story begins by explaining how humanity destroyed itself. In 2014, the planet's atmosphere was damaged and global warming became severe. To fix this crisis, scientists created an artificial cooling substance called CW7 and dispersed it into the air. It did reduce the heat initially, however it also caused an unexpected new ice age to hit the entire planet. The temperature dropped so drastically that the Earth became covered in thick ice and snow. Almost all life on the planet disappeared in this frozen wasteland. Fortunately, a genius scientist named Wilford had built something remarkable before the ice age began. He created a luxury train powered by a perpetual engine that would continuously travel around the globe on tracks spanning over 43,000 kilometers. This engine generated its own energy and could run forever without stopping. The train traveled through every country in the world, completing one full circle around the Earth every single year. The few remaining humans who survived the catastrophe now lived inside this moving sanctuary. However, the train wasn't built equally for everyone. The wealthy people who paid to board the train lived in the front sections with all the comforts and luxuries they were used to. But the poor and middle-class people who climbed aboard desperately to save their lives were forced into the tail section. This tail section was nothing better than a prison. They had no proper beds to sleep on and no decent food to eat. Every day, guards would bring them protein bars as their only meal. For the past 17 years, the lives of tail section residents had been a living nightmare. Some brave souls had attempted rebellions in the past, demanding better treatment and basic human rights. But they were all stopped by the armed guards who constantly watched over them. The guards made sure nobody could raise their voice against the system. However, hiding from these guards, a man named Curtis was secretly preparing for another revolution. He was working under the leadership of an old man named Gilliam, who had only one arm. Curtis wanted to reach the engine at the front of the train and take control of it. Someone inside the train was secretly helping them with their attack plan. This mysterious person would hide messages inside the protein bars and send them information about what to do next. Today, Curtis received another message from this unknown helper. The message contained a name, Nam Min-soo. Curtis knew that Nam was a security expert who had designed the train's security system. But right now, Nam was locked up in the prison section, which was 3 compartments ahead of them. Curtis had formed a plan. Every morning when guards came to distribute protein bars, all 3 section doors leading to their area would open. According to Curtis's strategy, they needed to attack the guards at that exact moment, rush through to the 3rd section, and free Nam from prison. After that, Nam could help them open the remaining doors leading to the front. Some people were still afraid they couldn't stand against the guards' guns. But Curtis was convinced that during the last rebellion, the guards had used up all their bullets. Since resources were limited on the train, the guards only carried empty guns to scare them. Tell me the time and country you are watching from. There was a young man named Edgar in the tail section who looked up to Curtis as his hero. Edgar was helping Curtis with everything for this revolution. Curtis had completed all preparations for the uprising. Now he was just waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, a woman wearing a yellow coat arrived from the wealthy section. Under the excuse of a medical checkup, she gathered all the children and measured their heights. Then she selected 2 children based on their measurements and forcibly took them away with her. One child's father became furious and threw his shoe at the woman, hitting her head and making it bleed. But the woman just smiled and took the children anyway. Soon after, a woman named Mason arrived. She was a high-ranking official on the train. Mason gave that helpless father such a terrible punishment that it shook everyone present to their core. On Mason's orders, the guards stuck the man's arm outside the train into the freezing air until it froze completely solid. Then they smashed his frozen arm with a hammer, shattering it like glass. The man screamed in unbearable pain. Mason reminded the poor people once again that they lived here only because of Wilford's mercy. Their place would always be beneath the feet of the rich. They had no right to protest or complain. This cruelty ignited the fire of revolution burning inside Curtis and his companions even more. The next morning, Curtis and his group were fully prepared for the attack. Soon the guards opened the doors and came inside to distribute protein bars. This was the perfect opportunity for Curtis to move forward through the train. But the other people were still scared of the guards' guns. That's when Curtis walked up to a guard, put the gun against his own head, and pulled the trigger himself. The gun was indeed empty, just as Curtis had predicted. Seeing this, all of Curtis's companions attacked the guards. They brought a long pipe made from steel drums and pushed it forward through the doors. They wedged these drums between the doors so they couldn't close. After that, Curtis and his group fought their way past the guards and finally reached the prison section. In the prison section, prisoners were kept locked inside small compartments like lockers. Edgar used keys taken from a guard to open Nam's locker. Nam woke up in a daze and confusion. Nam was a serious addict. On the train, waste from factories was processed into addictive pills that people used like drugs. These pills were also highly flammable. Nam was addicted to these pills. Taking advantage of this, Curtis made a deal with Nam. If Nam helped them get through the doors ahead, Curtis would give him one addictive pill for each door he opened. But then Nam opened the locker next to his, which contained his daughter Yona, who was also imprisoned. Nam said he needed 2 pills, one for him and one for his daughter, because she would come along too. Curtis agreed to this arrangement. With Nam's help, they opened doors and moved 2 more sections forward through the train. Nam started working on opening the 3rd section. But before opening it, Nam's daughter Yona announced that there's a man hanging inside. When the door finally opened, there was indeed a man hanging there, fixing a machine. This was the food section where protein bars for the tail section people were manufactured. The man making protein bars for them used to live in the tail section himself. But since he was a chef, the train officials put him to work making these bars. He operated automatic machines to produce them. Curtis wanted to see what ingredients were used to make the protein bars. When he looked inside the containers filled with ingredients, he felt sick to his stomach. The protein bars were made by grinding up insects and bugs. However, Curtis thought it was better to hide this truth from the others. During this time, Curtis noticed the chef was putting the same capsules with messages into a protein bar. Curtis threatened the chef and asked if he was the one sending them messages. The chef answered no, someone leaves these capsules here and he just puts them into the bars and sends them forward. Curtis opened the message and read it. It said water. Gilliam suggested that maybe their well-wisher was telling them to reach the water supply section. The chef mentioned that the water supply section was just a few compartments ahead, where water was filtered and recycled. Gilliam explained that the water section was the most crucial part of this train. If they captured it, they would have control over the wealthy people. They wouldn't even need to reach the engine. They could shut off the rich people's water supply and force them to meet their demands. Hearing this boosted everyone's confidence even more. With Nam's help, they moved forward and reached the door to the water section. Nam started working to open it. Meanwhile, Curtis asked Yona how she knew what was behind the doors before opening them. Just then, Yona saw something that made her run toward the door, shouting not to open it. But it was too late. Nam had already opened the door. What they saw on the other side made Curtis and his companions' legs shake with fear. That section was filled with many guards holding axes in their hands, standing there like death itself. But Curtis wasn't the type to back down from fear. Seeing Curtis's courage gave the others strength too. A massive fight broke out between both groups. Both sides started attacking each other without mercy. But then a train official arrived and announced through a loudspeaker that everyone should stop because they were about to cross the Yekaterina Bridge. Hearing this, everyone stopped fighting and the guards started a countdown. When their countdown ended, the train touched the Yekaterina Bridge and all the guards shouted Happy New Year. Actually, the train ran at a specific constant speed, so it always crossed the Yekaterina Bridge at the end of each year. This way, people on the train knew a new year had arrived. But this new year also brought danger because every year, rock-hard layers of ice formed on the Yekaterina Bridge tracks. The train would hit these and shake violently. But the train was strong enough to break through the ice rocks and pass. While the train was breaking through the rocks, everyone had ducked down to avoid the shaking. But Nam was showing his daughter Yona the view outside. Soon the train crossed the bridge and the danger passed. As soon as the danger was over, both groups started fighting again. But then Mason arrived and stopped the battle. She told Curtis and his people that they didn't appreciate the great Wilford's kindness. She reminded them how when they were starving, the great Wilford gave them food and shelter. And now they were rebelling against him. As punishment, 74% of them would be eliminated. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Curtis became furious and threw an axe at Mason, but one of her guards blocked it with a hammer. Mason angrily said they were all fools and would now face consequences. Saying this, Mason and all the guards put on night vision glasses. The train was about to enter a tunnel after the Yekaterina Bridge. But Curtis and his companions didn't know this because they had always lived in the closed compartments of the tail section. Soon the train entered the tunnel and complete darkness spread everywhere. Taking advantage of the darkness, the guards started attacking Curtis's companions. Curtis and his group were swinging axes blindly without being able to see anything. Nobody could figure out how to face the guards without light. That's when Curtis shouted to his people to send word back, they needed torches. Hearing this, the man whose hand had been cut off earlier came running with a torch. They lit many torches one after another, bringing light back to the train compartment. Curtis and his companions attacked the guards again with renewed strength. Seeing this, Mason tried to escape but Curtis threw a knife that hit her leg and she fell down. She crawled toward a switch to close the compartment door. Curtis ran toward her to stop her, but then a voice came from behind, "Curtis, help me." A guard had put a knife to Edgar's throat. For a moment Curtis didn't know what to do. But in the end, he chose the needs of the many over one person. He ran to capture Mason while the guard took Edgar's life. As soon as Curtis grabbed Mason, she ordered everyone to stop fighting. Young Franco, one of the guards, tried to attack Curtis, but Yona came out of hiding and stopped him with a metal rod. After the group captured old Franco as well, they washed the blood off in the next car, which had running water. Tanya and Andrew, whose children had been taken, hurt Mason to make her talk. But Mason only knew that the children were taken to Wilford. Now it was Curtis's turn to threaten her. He said he could turn off the water supply. However, Mason laughed and explained that water came from the front of the train, the snow and ice the train breaks as it moves. Curtis was ready to deal with her, but Mason managed to convince him to take her along because she could guarantee safe passage. That night the group decided to rest, but Curtis and Gilliam stayed up discussing the next move. Gilliam didn't like how many people had already been lost, so Curtis volunteered to keep going alone while Gilliam watched over the group and the prisoners. After looking at Curtis's arm scar, Gilliam accepted this plan. The next morning, Curtis left with Andrew, Tanya, Nam, Gray, and Yona, always keeping a handcuffed Mason at the front. The first car they entered was amazing, a greenhouse where fruits and vegetables were grown for the upper class. Nam gave Yona some dirt because she had never touched it before. She was surprised to find worms in it. The next car was a giant aquarium. Mason offered the group to have sushi, explaining that fish were only eaten twice a year to maintain ecological balance. Curtis stopped Mason from eating sushi and made her eat a protein block instead, enjoying her disgusted face because she knew what was in it. After passing through the butcher car, they found a classroom full of cheerful children. Tanya and Andrew immediately asked for their kids using the drawings they had, but a boy only knew that they were taken further into the train. The teacher turned on a video full of propaganda that taught the kids that Wilford was their merciful savior. The children absolutely loved it and even cheered for their leader. The teacher played an instrument and sang a song teaching the children they would freeze if the train ever stopped. At that moment, they passed by a spot in the landscape where 15 years ago, 7 people had tried to escape. Now their bodies were frozen statues in the snow. Then a man came in with a cart filled with New Year's warm eggs. Both the children and the rebels grabbed eggs to eat. Gerald, the violinist taken from the tail section earlier, also showed up to play for them. After Tanya noticed how much Gerald had changed since getting this job, Curtis found a capsule in an egg with a message saying blood. When the cart man reached another car, both he and the teacher pulled guns out of the piles of eggs and began shooting. Everyone ducked for cover. Sadly, the teacher took down Andrew before Gray stopped her with a knife. Mason tried to shoot Curtis, but he kicked the gun from her hand. A live video appeared on the classroom TV showing the cart man had eliminated all the rebels back in the tail section. Old Franco then took down Gilliam as well. Let me know in the comments which sci-fi movie I should cover next. A grieving Curtis got his revenge by stopping Mason. The group kept going and in the following cars, they found wealthy people using all kinds of services like doctors, tailors, and beauty salons. While they crossed the dining room, Franco started moving too. He noticed the train was turning in a way that his car and the one with the rebels were adjacent. Franco immediately opened fire and Curtis shot back, both missing until they ran out of bullets. While they reloaded, Nam saw a snowflake getting in through the bullet holes, which he considered an important clue. Then Franco and Curtis shot once more, but since this wasn't going anywhere, they decided to move on. The group crossed a spa before reaching a sauna, where they hid in the stalls before Franco and 2 guards caught up. Franco opened a stall and took down a high-class passenger, then he stopped the guard who called him out for it. At that moment Gray jumped out to stop the other guard and stabbed Franco in the shoulder, starting a fight. As the two men struggled, Curtis came out to shoot Franco, but couldn't aim without hurting Gray. When Franco knocked Gray out, Curtis finally shot, but Franco shot back and hurt Curtis's arm. Tanya tried to attack Franco too, but he just shot her down. Next Curtis started fighting Franco hand to hand. After much struggle, Franco knocked Curtis out. Then Franco tried to stab Curtis, only to be stopped by Gray. This time Franco overpowered him quickly and struck him down. When Franco opened another stall, he found Nam hiding behind a woman, triggering yet another fight. As Nam pushed Franco down and began strangling him, Yona came out and grabbed the knife. However, Nam didn't want her to use it and made her drop it. An awakening Curtis grabbed the knife to stab Franco in the side. Afterward Curtis rushed to check on Tanya, who asked to see Timmy's drawing one last time before passing away. The group kept moving and crossed a car hosting a loud party full of alcohol and wild behavior, followed by a car with pits filled with addicts. Nam and Yona used this chance to steal some furs and alcohol for warmth. Next they went through a computer car, and after crossing a bridge, they finally made it to Wilford's vault door. While Yona passed out because she drank too much, Curtis told Nam to open the door. Nam asked for more addictive pills, causing Curtis to lose his mind and begin beating on the door in frustration. Nam fought him to calm him down, then gave him the last cigarette on Earth. Curtis enjoyed it while sharing his dark story. During the first days on the train, the poor people had to eat the weak to survive. Curtis admits he took down a mother and almost harmed baby Edgar too, but Gilliam came through and offered his arm instead. Soon everyone started to copy him, but Curtis has a scar on his arm because he tried and couldn't do it. A few days after that, the guards started coming with the protein blocks. In return, Nam confesses that he's been stocking up on the addictive pills because they're flammable. He's made a device to open the door to the outside. For the last decade on every new year, Nam looked outside and saw signs that the ice is thawing. He thinks they could escape and survive outside now. The earth is warming up again and life can exist. Suddenly the door opens and Claude, the woman in the yellow coat, comes out. She shoots Nam and takes his device before telling Curtis that Wilford has invited him to dinner. Curtis comes inside and finally meets Wilford, who explains Curtis is the first person to have walked the total length of this train. Then Wilford talks about the importance of ecological balance. Since natural selection would have taken too long, years ago he made a plan with Gilliam. They designed fake revolutions that brought the population down. Curtis should have lost a few cars back but he got lucky, so to fix the balance, Wilford calls the egg guy and orders him to eliminate all the remaining poor people in the back except for 18 to celebrate their 18th year. The sound of screams and gunshots comes through the phone. Curtis realizes the logo Gilliam sat next to was his own private phone to Wilford. Meanwhile, Franco wakes up in the sauna and simply pulls out the knife from his wound. Outside Wilford's car, Yona and Nam also wake up, only to notice partygoers coming to attack. Nam quickly stops them, pushing one into the train's mechanism. But there are more angry partygoers coming. To hold them back, Nam blocks the passage while telling Yona to open the door. Back with Wilford, he brings Curtis into the engine room so he can have a moment alone, which he hasn't experienced since getting on the train. Overwhelmed, Curtis drops to his knees and cries while Wilford brings him the last capsule with a message saying train. Wilford wants Curtis to take his place as leader, saying it's what Gilliam wanted too. Outside, Franco starts making his way through the partygoer crowd at the same time Yona finally opens the door. Claude comes out to investigate, but Yona stops her and takes her gun, firing at Franco until she runs out of bullets. Franco is still standing, so Nam tells Yona to get the device back from Claude and the matches from Curtis. Yona runs inside and holds her hand out, but Curtis is under Wilford's influence and pushes her away. Desperate, she grabs a fork and lifts a floor tile to reveal Timmy working inside, powering the engine like a machine part. Wilford explains that they've run out of parts through the years, so nowadays he uses kids as replacements. A furious Curtis attacks Wilford, then he painfully reaches into the tile to stop the engine parts and gives Yona the matches. While Yona runs out, and he comes out of a compartment and goes to the engine to activate it again. In just seconds, Nam stops Franco, Yona lights up the device, and Curtis pushes through the pain of breaking his arm to stop the engine again so that Timmy can climb out. Then the group runs to embrace as the device explodes, blowing up the door but also causing a giant avalanche that pours down on the train. The cars begin to fall one by one and the train goes off the tracks until the front jams into the snow and finally stops after 17 years of constant motion. Moments later, Timmy and Yona wake up in the car surrounded by fire and the bodies of everyone else. Wearing the stolen furs for warmth, they go outside into the frozen world. They watch a polar bear walking in the distance and realize something amazing: they won't freeze to death outside. Nam was right. The ice is melting and the earth is healing. Life can exist again beyond the train. The story ends with hope as these two survivors step into a new world, free from the prison that had held humanity captive for so long.